Wonderful. So Andre Salais is our next speaker. He is the president of the SSA here at Arizona State. He used to go to Mesa Community College, and he is awesome because he is helping us immensely to make sure that everything at this conference is particularly awesome. And he's going to talk to you about running a badass table. So please welcome Andre Salais.
Thank you. Is that good for the mic? Right there? Okay. All right. So to begin, before I actually start going into the material, I just want to say that this the process of getting up here to be someone who is an authority on tabling is a process of trial and error. There are many authorities. Did I lose the mic? There are many authorities here, many people with great ideas, and you should leverage each other and take advantage of the great ideas that we all have to share. So running a badass table, do it for Jesus. We're going to go over first our... Why is my mouse not working? Okay. Come on. There we go. All right, so what are we covering? So basic contents, the pre-tabling stuff. So more the nitty-gritty, boring stuff that prepares you to be able to table. The table itself, what it should look like, how do you arrange it, staffing a table, so the people you have there, and this is probably one of the most important components of it, and then when to table. So... this really doesn't like me today. All right, for the pre-tabling stuff, we're going to start with the institutional issues. What are your institution's policies on distribution materials? Now, this does vary from school to school. At ASU, we have the good fortune of being in a place that's no censorship unless it's pushing hatred. So we can distribute pretty much anything we want without having to get approval. At Mesa Community College, we had to have stamps on everything that we handed out, and eventually we were able to get an agreement that it wasn't stamps on everything, but stamps on at least one copy of each thing, which we would have to be able to show as proof that these materials have been approved for distribution. So you don't want to be put in a situation where you can no longer distribute because you haven't gotten prior approval for those materials. There are often restrictions on tabling and the behaviors that you can your members are allowed to engage in while tabling. You should know why you're tabling. You need to have a very clear goal because you'll be more effective doing it if you have an idea of the purpose behind the table. Have you reserved a space? And if you have, who is responsible for that space? And I can't tell you how many times bad communication between me and some other officers meant that we were calling someone saying, hey, are you getting the table? Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to get it. Well, so-and-so said you did. And then we end up in this telephone game. So try to know that sort of thing in advance. And it happens. We make mistakes. But it's good to have that plan in advance. And lastly, are your materials ready to go? So on the distribution policies, content is not as big of an issue as long as it's not hate messages. I haven't really heard of colleges severely restricting content unless you're like passing out materials for a competing institution or something. There is often restrictions on the size of the material. So if they classify things like flyers, handbills, pamphlets, they'll have dimensions that are acceptable. Not all colleges are that restrictive, but some are, and you should look into it to make sure you're following within their guidelines. How many materials can you distribute? And this is more a behavior thing. If you're just handing out WIAs, the What is an Atheist flyers to everyone you see, that might be something your college isn't okay with because it might be viewed as just wasteful or littering, because often they'll end up in the trash when you do that. And let's see, volume size restrictions, already went over that. Okay, so restrictions on tabling. Where can you table? There's usually specific locations. We have an area here where we're allowed to set up tables, but outside of that, we can't have tables. And often it's a safety issue, and you want to make sure you're not violating any safety-related policies. In some colleges, you have to stay behind the table. You're not allowed to approach the students. Other colleges don't care. So make sure you know what your members tabling are allowed to do, so everything is cool with your college. And what resources does your college make available to you so that tabling can be done more effectively? We have a place where we can pick up tables. They have to be reserved in advance, and they allow us to schedule when we're doing it, and that's fantastic that they provide the furniture for us. And at Mesa Community College, they used to bring the table out for us, so it varies from school to school. But know what your resources are and how to take advantage of them. All right. So this is an important component here, because this is going to make your tabling effective if you know why exactly you're doing it. This will sort of help to frame the rest of what's going on at the table, and fix aesthetics and member preparation and whatnot. So if you're recruiting, have recruitment materials available. Provide them with a way that they can sign up, whether that's a sign-up sheet, a web-based form, and it has to be accessible. Make it easy to get to. For fundraising, have information on the cause you're fundraising for, the purpose of the fundraiser, and make it obvious that you're raising money. So we did a Send an Atheist to Church thing, and we got several of our members, and we agreed to send the top 3, Dr. Bliss, you might be able to correct me on this, the top 3 or 5, you don't remember. All right, so the top, however many, the top fundraising jars with their face on it, they were going to go to church, and I ended up visiting 5 mosques as a result of it. But we had their face taped to a mason jar. Each jar already had money in it, so it was obvious that money was supposed to go there, and we made sure our members knew what we were doing. So they were able to talk to people about it, say what it is we're doing, explain that we're actually not a church that's kidnapping atheists and sending them to church, all kinds of crazy stuff. But it helped them to be effective, and people thought, oh, this is a great idea, because we knew how to talk about it. Awareness. Again, appropriate materials. If you need to display something, have an engaging display. Don't just glue a bunch of black and white pictures together. Make it something that someone wants to read. And when you look at it, if you're creating it, have other people look at it and give you feedback and say, you know, maybe if we put these pictures here, it might be more pleasant, or if we use this color, it might pop more, and I might want to stop and look at it. That's all important. And then for public engagement, let's see. What positions are you promoting? And I don't mean jobs within the organization. What is the argument or the message that you're trying to get across? Are your volunteers prepared to defend these messages? Is your table appropriately staffed for multiple, potentially lengthy conversations? If you have 2 people there, you shouldn't be engaging in long debates. If you plan on doing a public engagement project or tabling on something very controversial, or for the purpose of having discussions, make sure you have enough people to handle everyone who wants to talk. All right, so moving on to space. How frequently can you table? Some colleges have restrictions on this. How long in advance do you need to request a table or space? Here, I believe it does have to be a couple of weeks in advance to actually get on the tabling list. We can get it earlier, but there is a fee for it, and I know most of us don't have substantial budgets, so keep that in mind. Does somebody need to confirm the request in order for your reservation to be made? A lot of universities require someone to sign for it. If it's not signed for it, your members will show up to table and you won't be able to get the table. And will you be billed if your table is not picked up or is returned late? Keep that in mind as well. There are restrictions on, they may have someone there to give the tables out for only a few minutes, not minutes, maybe half an hour, someone there to pick them up, to receive them for half an hour, and they have to check in this equipment. You may be charged if it inconveniences them in a way that they have to pay someone to be there to receive the equipment again. All right, so are your materials prepared? This is just a lovely picture of my now broken coffee table with all of our SSA materials on it. If you need specific materials for an event, you need to make sure that they are requested well in advance so that you have them. So if you want to do a church-state separation event, make sure you're requesting these materials every time you request materials from the SSA so you can have them when you do the event. Do you have enough materials to distribute? If you don't, consider making photocopies, consider requesting more. The SSA is a fantastic resource. Read your material. Might approach a table with a specific question, and if the volunteer hasn't read it, they have to run around and find someone who has, but you need people there who actually know what's in the materials so they can defend what's in the materials, and so you know that it's applicable to what it is you're tabling about. Now, one thing you might want to consider is that not all of your students at your college speak English as a first language, and Spanish is going to be the most common here in Arizona, so you may want to consider having materials available in English and Spanish. So this is for our David Fitzgerald Fitzgerald event. Hi, David. We did a flyer in English and in Spanish, and the graphics are also in Spanish, the words in the graphics, so everything is in Spanish there. And this isn't so much because we have students who don't speak English on campus. It's a way to reach out and say, hey, this is a group for you too. It's not just for what's stereotypically the atheist group. You know? All right. The table, so the art of table aesthetics. I'm going to start with what it shouldn't look like. You shouldn't have a pile of just mixed materials all over the place, so we need to keep it from being a disaster. A well-arranged table with materials your volunteers have never seen is not a good idea. With no clear point to the selection of materials is not a good idea. A table is neat but is generally unpleasant to look at. A good just a general mess. So there's stuff all over the place, food, shoes, backpacks, computers that aren't being used by the club. The rocks are being used as paperweights and they're falling apart, or a chunk of dirt actually happened at MCC, just grabbed a chunk of dirt and stuck it on top. We have clay here, it doesn't fall apart like normal dirt does. And then an overwhelming mess of information. If students have too much to go through, they're not going to take anything. So make sure that it's as streamlined as possible. And then a collage of the same materials in an unnecessary number of piles. So we get lots of the What is an Atheist flyers, which are fantastic, but you don't need to have them stacked in a collage of piles on an entire half of the table, because that's a bit overwhelming. Now, here's some examples. We don't want that. We don't want... Okay, where did the other ones go? I just lost a whole bunch of pictures here. Okay. Let's see. Materials that your volunteers have never seen. So I just used the same picture again because not everyone has read everything that was in the box. No clear point to the selection of materials. The SSA sends a ton of different materials with different purposes. So don't just put them all out there. And if it's generally unpleasant to look at, like this, no one's going to want to stop by and grab anything. It's boring, it's unappealing, I don't like it, so I'm not stopping. This should never occur, ever. More does not equal better. And what your table should look like is orderly and well managed. That's true. But materials should have a clearly defined purpose. Materials should have been read in advance. The display should be visually appealing if you're using like trifolds or if you're just arranging stuff on a table, regardless of what it is. It should be something that's attractive to a person who was walking by. And swag items, if you're giving stuff away, make sure it's visible so people can stop and grab it. Because being able to walk over and pick up a button or a free pen might start a conversation. I want to look at this table. It's interesting. Not all the handouts are the same color, and the person at the table looks really happy, which makes me want to engage them in a discussion. Here's us. As you can see, there's a computer on top of a pile of flyers. That's not cool. But this is a good idea. We're just promoting reason at this table. It's just the general reason promotion event. So we had a number of books that we recommended, The Problem of Evil, What is Evolution, stuff of that nature. Here's the Send an Atheist to Church. Right in the front are all of the jars. Right where people can see them and say, hey, what is this about? All right. So becoming a member at a table. When you're tabling, you will have people who ask you about membership. If you don't, you should be asking them about whether or not they want to be a member or be added to your list. But you need to make your sign-up options obvious. They have to be able to easily access it. They need to be neat, so don't use a handwritten sign-up sheet. And they need to be easy to follow, so you shouldn't have to include a flow chart with your sign-up sheet. Joining the club should be simple but comprehensive enough to provide you with useful information about your members. Your sign-up option should distinguish between an email list and a membership roster, because the people on your distribution list are not necessarily your members. They might just be interested in receiving emails from you. So, how can I leverage technology for this? Well, I will show you. So this is the website of, we'll see if it loads here, the ASU Secular Student Alliance. Let me shrink this. So So you can already tell what it is just by looking at it. There's some pictures of happy people there. We have a sign-up section that we use, and we use Woofu forms, which are free and incredibly easy to assemble. To become a member, to sign up, they can become a member, they can volunteer for an event, apply for a position, register for the conference, and if they're not an ASU student, join the list, email list. So here's the form. We don't do paid membership anymore, so that'll be gone. But name, phone number, email address, what year are they, so you can see who's graduating. What do they identify as? What are they most interested in doing? How did they hear about you, so you can figure out what's effective in advertising your group? And what else would you like to know? And we use this at our tables. We provide a tablet or a computer to make life easier when tabling. All right, so let me pull this back up here. Okay. That's unfortunate. Sorry. Okay, staffing a table. What not to do. You don't want to recruit your volunteers at the last minute. You should expect someone to collect your table, and they should know that they're doing it. You want people of very different opinions, different backgrounds, different majors, so that everyone can see that this is a club for them. There's options for them that work, people that they can associate with who are like-minded in this organization. Now, you also want it to be an upbeat environment. So generally, depressing people won't encourage people to join. And this person might not be the best person to have at your table.
What is this child's birthday party? Why would you celebrate the slowly tightening grip of death?
All right. Neither will intimidating expressions of anger, but we're upset about things. Who do we have table? This person. This is Greta Christina, and she's written a book about reasons that atheists are angry. But what's wonderful about Greta Christina's approach is, yes, she is angry, but she can communicate it in a calm way, articulate her anger in a way that people understand, and it makes it accessible to them where they can understand it, where they can grasp it. And even if they don't agree, they at least understand why you're upset. That's the type of person you want at your table. So the last section, when do you table? Do you have an upcoming event? Come on. You should table, okay? And say this with me when we get to these slides. Do you need to raise money? Is your club smaller than your student body? Is irrationality alive and well? Is your institution hosting a club recruitment event? Are there spaces for tabling available? Is your institution open? Are non-believers still marginalized? Does Fox News still pretend to be news? You should table. Does the Pope protect pedophiles? You should table. Does your club exist? You should table. Are there, do you know where I'm going with this? You should table whenever you have the opportunity. It's an effective way to bring people into your meetings, even people who aren't non-believers, people who might just want to be part of a good discussion. Our most active members discover our club through tabling. So take advantage of this free resource of just sitting there and talking to people. Use it whenever you get the chance, whenever you have the opportunity, and do it as frequently as you can. So thank you for giving me 20 minutes of your time.